Hey, everybody. Welcome to Stumpcast. I'm Rick, joined as always by Jazz, Price, and Ash. Say hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello. We're bringing you a super spoopy episode of Stumpcast. This is going to be 100% spoopy this week, guys. No time for how's your week? We don't care. News, there's none of it. It's all spoopy, 100% all day, every day. We're going to get into it, guys. I think that we've mined the depths of the internet to find the spoopiest stories.
Okay, looking for some spoops.
Sort of?
Some spoops.
You better bring it. You better bring the spoop.
I didn't mind that far, to be honest. But
there
I
are a couple
dig
that I
too
found.
deep or too griddly.
There are a couple that I found. If we need extra, I can find some more.
Oh, I'm
real quick.
sitting on a mine.
A gold mine?
A gold mine of
Nice.
spooky. So, question is, who's going to scare us first, guys? Who's up first?
ooh,
I think you should get going with it.
since you guys have a treasure trove, I just have one.
A Trevor trove. I got Trevor. I got Trevor. And he's in a trove.
What's Trevor doing in your trove, bro?
Get out of
out of
that
my
trove,
trove.
Trevor. What have I told you about that?
Gotta get out of my trove, Trevor.
I apologize if I'm coughing. I caught a cold.
Jasmine caught a
And now Ash
spoopy
has got one
cold.
too.
She got me sick.
They say it's a cold,
did
but
it.
really it's the rage virus. Is that what it was
It's
called?
the
28 days
rage
later?
Cage.
Okay,
It's the
so
rage cage virus.
Yes, it was the rage virus. I was
the
like,
first one I'm going to start with.
It's the
I
Gary
never
virus.
heard of this. Maybe you guys have. All right. I hope you brought an extra pair of pants because you're going to shit yourself. All right. This,
I'm ready.
Let's hear it.
this
I've got my
is-
pants undone already.
This is taken from whatculture.com. This is number 6 of 8 spooky gaming urban legends that will give you nightmares.
Let's hear him. Let's hear him.
And this is from the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, guys. A mod that drives players insane.
Ha.
A lot of people don't realize Skyrim is actually the 5th in the Elder Scrolls series. People realize that. I know our listeners
Everyone
do.
knows that.
Dummies
Who
don't.
doesn't realize that?
In the past...
If you don't know that, you're not a dummy. All right.
Okay. Well, maybe a little bit. Okay. In the past couple years, stories of this game mod have popped up online. The mod is simply known as JVK1166Z.ESP and thought to be a virus as the game would freeze and corrupt your save games. It was then discovered if you ran the game on DOSBox, a system that allows you to run old games on modern computers, the mod would work.
Ha.
The game starts with all the main characters dead. Your health depletes if you stay still. When your health runs out, you're replaced with a spider-like creature known as the Assassin. This got creepy with players noticing the character crawling around trees and walls in the background, characters only coming out at night and standing still, and anyone you spoke to saying, "Watch the sky."
What?
Yeah, they used to do that quite a lot, just in general.
Inside the dungeon is what players call the Hall of Portraits, which has frames containing images from the user's My Pictures folder on the wall. At the end of the hallway is a
what?
locked door. Some claim to have spent hours trying to get through this door, giving players hallucinations of the assassin in real life, as well as sleepless nights trying to fathom unlocking the elusive door. The creepiest part is you can actually download this mod at your own risk.
That's really clever using pictures from your gallery, though.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I'd be kind of freaked out at
we got
first. I'd be
to
like,
find
what
this
the-
mod, guys.
No, we don't.
What?
It's a dungeon with a door with nothing behind
You
it.
don't see how creepy the assassin is, though. There's a picture. You guys will see it in the side over there. That's a creepy looking spider dude. What's that guy's deal?
That's creepy, dude.
All right,
That's
we're just getting
spoopy-
started, okay? The spoopiest
right.
stuff
Well, I mean, it's
doesn't
kinda
start at the
creepy.
beginning.
It's kind of creepy how no one talks or they're all dead.
Yeah.
And then they come out like at night and they don't say anything except to look for the stars, which they totally did in the game quite frequently.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
It's the only line of
I can see
dialogue
it.
they knew.
All right, I'll do a tiny little like couple sentence horror story found on creepypasta.org. Okay, this is called "Who's in My Bed."
Ooh.
I begin tucking him into bed, and he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement and see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my bed."
That was like that one I told you last year. Remember that one?
Yeah, the one where it's like The mom at the bottom of the stairs saying,
calls the
"There's
daughter.
Oh, yeah.
and then
That was
the
included
girl-
in that list,
Aren't
too.
those so creepy? I hate
Yeah,
those
it's
little
kinda
mini
creepy.
stories.
Don't go down there.
Oh, man.
I heard it
I
too.
heard it too.
I heard it
Yeah.
too. Oh, man. Chills.
All right, that was
Oh,
pretty
man.
good for a 2-sentence one. That's all
Two cents
right.
little horror story. That's pretty good, I think.
But somebody's got to
pretty
top
good.
that one. Who's going to bring it?
I've got
All
a
right,
few. But
I'll go next since your story mentioned like a hall of portraits or something. This horror story is called The Portraits. Also from creepypasta.org. There was a hunter in the woods who, after a long day of hunting, was in the middle of an immense forest. It was getting dark, and having lost his bearings, decided to head in one direction until he was clear of the increasingly oppressive foliage. I want to be clear that if you're in that situation, that's not what you should do. After what seemed like hours, he came across a cabin in a small clearing. Realizing how dark it had grown, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. He approached and found the door ajar. Nobody was inside. The hunter flopped down on the single bed, deciding to explain himself to the owner in the morning. He looked around inside the cabin. He was surprised to see the walls adorned with several portraits, all painted in incredible detail. Without exception, they appeared to be staring down at him, their features twisted into looks of hatred and malice. Staring back, he grew increasingly uncomfortable. Making a concerted effort to ignore as many as the hateful faces as he could, he turned to face the wall, exhausted, and fell restless to sleep. The next morning, the hunter awoke. He turned, blinking in unexpected sunlight. Looking up, he discovered that the cabin had no portraits, only windows.
Oh, that's pretty creepy. Oh, yeah. Oh,
gross.
yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, you did good
I've
there,
heard of that
son.
one too. That was pretty cool.
Oh, man.
All right.
Do you have any jazz?
I have just one.
You want to save it now, or you want
Do you
to
want to save it?
I could say it right now.
do it now?
This one's called The Elevator, and it's from creepypastawiki.com. Because I didn't get that far. A doctor was riding down the elevator to his office on the 4th floor. Next to him was another patient. The elevator soon stopped at the 8th floor, and when the doors opened, a young boy stood in front of them. Going down, the young boy asked. The doctor gave a boy a look, and before answering, No, this one goes up. He pressed the button to close the doors. The patient beside him asked, Why didn't you let him ride with us? The car is going down anyways. He was already dead. He was a patient who died a week ago because of leukemia, the doctor answered. How do you know he was dead? The patient beside him asked. Well, he had a blue tag on his left wrist. That means he is dead and was marked for the morgue. Oh, you mean like this? The patient shows the doctor the blue tag on his left wrist.
Crap.
Do you think everybody in the hospital was dead?
Oh, goodness.
I think he sees dead people. I think he's Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
No, he's the little boy. He's Haley Joel Osment. Just grown up as a doctor now.
Oh, man.
All right.
That's my only one.
I've got a real life. I've got a couple real life ones. Okay, these ones are pretty creepy. This one's called "Hotel Guest Finds Horror Lurking Under the Bed." There's always that moment of dread when you stick one foot out from under your covers as you envisage a paranormal activity style death being dragged down the stairs. You've had an instinctive worry about what's under your bed from a young age, even though nothing's ever been under there. If that's the case, you're one of the lucky ones. Dead bodies have popped up in hotel beds all over America: Florida, California, Las Vegas, Atlantic City. It seems there isn't a state that's gone without a corpse not checking out. One particularly disturbing case was in 2003 when a guest noticed a foul smell in his room at the Capri Motel in Kansas City and complained to the staff. After 3 nights of opening windows and no doubt gallons of Febreze, the stench would not leave, causing the poor guest to vomit in the room. When the cleaning crew began shifting furniture to clean the puke up, they found the decomposing corpse of a man wearing only a nun's wimple and fishnet stockings. To repeat, he slept in that bed for 3 nights. This dead body was underneath the bed where this guy slept for 3 nights.
That's awful.
That happens.
Why a nurse's
that
wimple?
happens.
And why would the hotel not give him another room? Like, obviously, someone would have had to check the room and be like, yep, this smells gross. No, you're sleeping here anyway.
Maybe they just didn't have another room available?
Yikes, man.
Maybe it was just,
Yikes.
I mean, I imagine that the type of hotel, the Capri Motel in Kansas City, that doesn't notice that there's a dead body under the bed probably isn't the most high class hotel.
Yeah.
As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, I'll Yelp it after this, okay?
Oh, man. All right, I'll do another short one. It's longer than the one I did before.
Longer than
And
two sentences?
I got a couple that are significant in length, so maybe we'll pepper those in throughout. But again, here's another one from creepypasta.org called "I'm Worried About My Son." I'm very worried about my son. More than worried at this point. Terrified. His behavior these past few weeks is not normal, not healthy. It makes me think there's something wrong. At first, he would just come and stand at the doorway. He did this at night, just before I'd be ready to fall asleep. I'd roll over, turn off the lamp, and he'd be standing there, in the doorway. I used to try to speak to him. I don't do that anymore. He never has answered me. He just stares. A couple of days ago, he graduated from standing in the doorway to coming in and sitting on the bed. He still doesn't speak. I've asked him what he wants. I've asked him if anything is bothering him. It's not like him to be so quiet. He usually waits until my wife is asleep. That's the part that gets me. She always falls asleep before me, and he's never come in when she's awake. But then, she didn't have a hand in this. If something doesn't change soon, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm starting to feel like he knows that I'm the one who killed him.
Oh, jeez.
It's a
That's
dark
unsettling.
turn at the end
That
there.
is really dark.
I mean, I had a
Whoa.
feeling that the kid was dead, but the dad killed him? Good God.
Yikes. Yikes.
You think he had it coming to him, though? Think he was just like a really terrible kid?
Oh boy,
Why
I don't
else
know,
would the
Rick.
dad
I don't
kill
know.
him, you know?
It's got to have a reason. I just accidentally blew out my candle. Start
Did
back
you
up,
blow
please.
it out, or did the kid?
Oh. Price, look out behind. Don't turn around. Don't.
Don't blink.
Dark Commissar is in town. Well, uh-oh. All right.
All right. I wasn't sure if I was going to read this one or not, but this one
Now you've
sort of
got to.
goes. Yeah, this one sort of is in the same vein as that.
Okay.
So, she made a playful squeal as I tagged her. It was clear that she was enjoying herself. She was laughing to herself in tears. Daddy, stop it. My sides hurt. She continued to laugh. Her joy was contagious. I smiled. For once in years, I smiled. I dare say I smiled more than I've ever in my entire life. Alas, all good things must come to an end. She was tired and fell asleep shortly after. My wife came home. She was glad to see me. She yelled my name again, laughing in tears. She hugged me, still laughing. I continued to smile. She looked at me and saw my tagging tool. Quickly shooting her focus down to her eyes, she continued to smile. Michael, tears continued to stream down her face in excitement. How could you have done this to our little angel? She continued to try to run, but it was too slow. Tag! You're it.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's...
Not okay. Not okay.
No.
Hey, as long as we're talking about murdering father stories,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah, no, that's a good murdering father story.
You gotta share them all. Gotta share all those murdering daddy stories.
Oh man.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
so you guys, you want to have like a slightly longer one?
Yeah, if you want to
Yeah.
knock our socks off,
I got
man.
one here. Okay, so this is a well-known creepypasta, and it is called Candle Cove. And
Candle Cove.
the way that it works is it's sort of like a series of forum posts. So I'm going to
Okay.
read each one, and I'll just kind of say, next, or maybe I'll pause after each one and kind of signal in some way that the next one is coming up, because it's a series of forum posts, and the main poster, the first poster, is called Sky Shale. Okay, and the only reason I say that is because that name's going to pop up at some point where someone's referring to Sky Shale. So on the Net Nostalgia Forum, television (parentheses local). The first one is from Sky Shale. Does anyone remember this kids show? It was called Candle Cove. I must have been 6 or 7. I never found reference to it anywhere, so I think it was on a local station around 1971 or 1972. I lived in Ironton at the time. I don't remember which station, but I do remember it was a weird time, like 4 p.m. Next. It seems really familiar to me. I grew up outside of Ashland and was 9 years old in 72. Candle Cove. Was it about pirates? I remember a pirate marionette at the mouth of a cave talking to a little girl. Next. Yes! Okay, I'm not crazy. I remember Pirate Percy. I was always kind of scared of him. He looked like he was built from parts of other dolls, like really low budget. His head was an old porcelain baby doll. Looked like an antique that didn't belong on the body. I don't remember what station it was, though. I don't think it was WTSF. Sorry to resurrect this old thread, but I know exactly what show you mean, Skyshale. I think Candle Cove ran for only a couple of months in 71, not 72. I was 12, and I watched it a few times with my brother. It was channel 58, whatever station that was. My mom would let me switch to it after the news. Let me see what I remember. It took place in Candle Cove. It was about a little girl who imagined herself to be friends with pirates. The pirate ship was called the Laughingstock, and Pirate Percy wasn't a very good pirate because he got scared too easily. And there was Calliope music constantly playing. I don't remember the girl's name. Janice, Jade, something. I think it was Janice. Next. Thank you, Jaren. Oh, memories are flooding back when you mentioned the Laughingstock in Channel 58. I remember the bow of the ship was a wooden smiling face with the lower jaw submerged. It looked like it was swallowing the sea, and it had that awful Ed Wynn voice and laugh. Ugh. I especially remember how jarring it was when they switched from the wooden or plastic model to the foam puppet version of the head that talked. Oof. Next one. I remember now, too. Winky face. Do you remember this part, Skyshale? You have to go inside. Next. Ugh, Mike, I got a chill reading that. Yes, I remember. That's what the ship always told Percy when there was a spooky place he had to go in, like a cave or a dark room where the treasure was. And the camera would push in on Laughingstock's face with each pause. You have to go inside. With his two eyes askew and that flopping foam jaw and the fishing line that opened and closed it. Ugh, it just looked so cheap and awful. You guys remember the villain? He had a face that was just a handlebar mustache above really tall, narrow teeth.
Yeah.
Next one. I honestly thought the villain was Pirate Percy. I was about 5 when this show was on. Nightmare fuel. Next. That wasn't the villain, the puppet with the mustache. That was the villain's sidekick, Horace Horrible. He had a monocle too, but it was on top of the mustache. I used to think that meant he had only one eye. But yeah, the villain was another marionette, the Skin Taker. I can't believe what they let us watch back then.
Ew.
Next one. Jesus H. Christ, the Skin Taker? What kind of a kid's show were we watching? I seriously could not look at the screen when the Skin Taker showed up. He just descended out of nowhere on his strings, just a dirty skeleton wearing that brown top hat and cape, and his glass eyes that were too big for his skull. Christ almighty. Next one. Wasn't his top hat and cloak all sewn up crazily? Was that supposed to be children's skin?
Oh.
Ew.
Next one. Yeah, I think so. Remember his mouth didn't open and close? His jaw just sort of slid back and forth? Ugh. I remember the little girl said, "Why does your mouth move like that?" And the Skin Taker didn't look at the girl but at the camera and said, "To grind your skin."
Ew.
Yeah.
Next one. I'm so relieved that other people remember this terrible show. I used to have this awful memory, a bad dream I had where the opening jingle ended, the show faded in from black, and all the characters were there, but the camera was just cutting to each of their faces, and they were just screaming, and the puppets and marionettes were flailing spastically and just all screaming. The girl was just moaning and crying like she'd been through hours of this. I woke up many times for that nightmare. I used to wet the bed when I had it. Next one. I don't think that was a dream. I remember that. I remember that was an episode. Next one. No. Not possible. There was no plot or anything. I mean, literally just standing in place, crying and screaming for the whole show. Next one. I mean, maybe I'm manufacturing the memory because you said that, but I swear to God, I remember seeing what you described. They just screamed.
Ew.
Next. Oh, God. Yeah. The little girl, Janice, I remember seeing her shake and the Skin Taker screaming through his gnashing teeth, his jaw careening so widely I thought it would come off its wire hinges. I turned it off and it was the last time I watched. I ran to tell my brother and we didn't have the courage to turn it back on. Last entry. I visited my mom today at the nursing home. I asked her about when I was little in the early 70s, when I was 8 or 9, if she remembered a kids show, Candle Cove. She said she was surprised I could remember that, and I asked why, and she said, "Because I used to think it was so strange that you said, 'I'm going to go watch Candle Cove now, Mom,' and then you would turn the TV to static and just watch dead air for 30 minutes. You had a big imagination with your little pirate show.
Wow.
It's creepy, huh?
That is really weird. I just found one while you were talking about this.
Hit us.
That is creepy, though. Hold on.
Yeah.
Whoa. And I just before Jasmine, before you go, I just want to say I have another children's TV show based horror thing. There's actually like 2 or 3 of them
Well, you
that
know,
are like
children's
really
TV shows
popular
are
ones.
terrifying.
So what do we what do we think? Do we think that the static could only be viewed by children, or that the other forum posters were just like
Subliminal messages, man.
Well, so the thing is like the last entry was not by Sky Shale. It was by one of the other forum members. So it could be that they're all figments of this one person's imagination, or it could be that they all had this shared experience of the static communicating some horrifying experience.
I could totally see this being like an X-Files episode, because there are totally like those episodes where there's static in the TV and only certain people can like see the message.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty creepy.
that's what I imagine
yeah, like
as well.
children's shows back then are terrifying. Just absolutely terrifying.
Like, HR Puff and stuff.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. That thing is nightmare fuel.
Oh yeah.
That's like early 60s like television where everything looks like,
Or like
it's a coked out
Howdy
dream.
Doody.
Howdy Doody's fine.
Howdy Doody is not fine. No.
Howdy Doody's fine.
No.
Compared to HR Puff and stuff,
I don't know. I'll let you you viewers be the judge. All right,
Just some
Jasmine.
pictures over on the side,
Oh,
Rick, of some
they're
HR
there.
Puff and stuff.
They are
and
there. We're watching them right now.
Oh,
All right, Jazz.
man.
hit us
I
with
found
some
one.
dark
It's
stuff.
very short and sweet. It's not as long as yours. The last thing I saw was my alarm clock flashing 12:07 before she pushed her long, rotting nails through my chest, her other hand muffling my screams. I sat up bolt upright, relieved it was only a dream. But as I saw my alarm clock read 12:06, I heard my closet door creak open.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Not okay.
Yeah. That's good.
Oh, God. Oh,
I
man.
actually like these short ones because it's just short and sweet. It gets you right at the punch.
Yeah. No, it's
There's a
like,
lot of them.
There's a lot of good ones out there.
So I know
Yeah.
you guys are fans of the creepypasta. What gets me personally is the real life stuff, and that's what
I want to hear some more
bringing the
real-life
real
ones.
life stuff.
Let's hear some more
okay?
of Rick's real life
Here's
stuff.
something called hikers killed by mysterious natural forces. All right.
Oh.
Maybe it's best no one will ever know what happened with this case. The evidence is chilling enough. In 1959, a group of experienced Russian hikers went missing on a skiing trip. When their camp was discovered, their tents were found torn open from the inside, and they were wearing very little clothing. In Russia in winter? It gets weirder. The bodies were stained orange with massive internal injuries from a force that a doctor studying the incident compared to that of a car crash.
Wow.
There were no signs of a struggle, despite the victims with fractured skulls, broken ribs, and one woman missing her tongue, eyes, and other parts of her face.
Yeah.
As you'd imagine, all sorts of theories about the cause of deaths have been tried and tested over the years, but the final verdict was that the hikers died of a compelling natural force. What does that even mean? Never has something so ambiguous been so horrifying.
What was the year again?
1959.
I think I've seen, there's a movie that was based off of this.
Oh, yeah?
Sort of a found footage-y kind of movie of people going to hike up on that mountain where this thing happened. Rick, I think you'd actually like it. I'll have to go figure out what the name of that movie was.
This story scared the hell out of me. There's actually a picture here of the tent collapse and a couple of Russian dudes checking it out.
Yep.
I mean, they were they were stained orange. Like, what is that about? She was missing her eyes and her tongue.
I think there's some theory that there was like some kind of bunker nearby or something like that where they might have been testing some nuclear materials. There's other theories that there's like some kind of monster up on the mountain. There's all kinds of
You know what I think?
theories. What?
Aliens.
Wendigos.
Of course.
Wendabagels.
Wendell bagels.
They're Wendell bagels.
man.
All right, who's next?
I've got one that is a true life creepypasta.
Yes.
apparently.
Oh.
This is posted by Reddit user R.W. Blingham.
Bling that ham.
Sounds
All right.
legit.
Makes it delicious.
Drake.
It's honey baked.
It was
baby.
near Halloween time when my friends and I were telling ghost stories. My friend said that she was going to tell a story about her parents' first date. She didn't like telling the story since it was actually true, but we prodded her on. To cut to the chase, the parents had spent a nice, if awkward, first date. Around the time that they would have said goodnight, the male in the situation, the friend's dad, suggested that they go for a midnight hike up Provo Canyon. He apparently knew the place, since he had done a fair amount of rock climbing in the area. So the two drove up the mouth of the canyon, got out of the cars, and started hiking until they were under the light of the stars, since it was a new moon. At some point, the male starts getting a bad feeling. Since the pathway ahead, which would pass under some tall trees, would be dark, and because it was getting quite late. He ignores the feeling and presses on. In later rehearsings of the story, the female would say that she had felt the same thing, feeling that it was probably around the same time, though she didn't know the trail like he did. A minute later, the feeling came back to the male. He ignored it again and started walking a bit of the way into the trees when his foot hit something soft in the middle of the path. Under the trees, it was too dark to see what the soft thing was. The feeling came back stronger than ever. Instead of finding out what his foot had bumped into, he and the female both agreed to hightail it out of there. Years later, after being married for some time, they were watching an interview with a serial killer, Ted Bundy. In response to a question asking him to describe the time that he had felt the closest to being caught, he explained about the night that he had lured a girl to Provo Canyon, and he had killed her when he had heard some people coming on the trail. He explained that he hid in the trees at the time only to watch some guy walk right by the body, and for some reason just turn around and walk away.
That's creepy.
1, that's
Dude.
creepy. 2, congratulations on your successful first date.
And congratulations on your nuptials. Mazel tov. Wow, that's, oh, God, man. Not okay.
No, right? I mean, literally, they were moments away from just being killed
Yeah.
themselves.
Oh, yeah. Ted Bundy would have took him out. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that's so...
Ted Bundy.
Ugh. Okay, I've got another shorter one.
Okay.
Okay, this one's from creepypasta.org as well, called White with Red.
Being sponsored by creepypasta.org. Shout out to
Hit us up with that
creepypasta.org.
collab.
Definitely not, but it has a really nice search system, so that's why I've been using it. So, White with Red. A man went to a hotel and walked up to the front desk to check in. The woman at the desk gave him his key and told him that on the way to his room, there was a door with no number that was locked, and no one was allowed in there. She explained that it was a storeroom that was out of bounds. She reminded him of this several times before allowing him upstairs. So he followed the instructions of the woman at the front desk, going straight to his room and going to bed. However, the insistence of the woman had piqued his curiosity. So the next night he walked down the hall to the door and tried the handle. Sure enough, it was locked. He bent down and looked through the wide keyhole. Cold air passed through it, chilling his eye. What he saw was a hotel bedroom, like his, and in the corner was a woman whose skin was incredibly pale. She was leaning her head against the wall, facing away from the door. He stared in confusion for a while. Was this a celebrity? The owner's daughter? He almost knocked on the door out of curiosity, but decided not to. As he was still looking, the woman turned sharply, and he jumped back away from the door, hoping she would not suspect he had been spying on her. He crept away from the door and walked back to his room. The next day, he returned to the door and looked through the wide keyhole. This time, all he saw was red. He couldn't make anything out besides a distinct red color, unmoving. Perhaps the inhabitants of the room knew he was spying the night before and had blocked the keyhole with something red. He felt embarrassed that he made the woman so uncomfortable and hoped she had not made a complaint with the woman on the front desk. At this point, he decided to consult her for more information. After some gentle quizzing and the promise that the explanation would go no further than him, she finally said, "Well, I might as well tell you the story of what happened in that room. A long time ago, a man murdered his wife in there. We find that even now, people get uncomfortable staying there. But these people were not ordinary. They were white, all over, except for their eyes, which were pure red.
Oh.
It's creepy.
I get it. Oh.
I get it.
Shoot. Okay, that's pretty
But I
spooky.
think that's just a bad front clerk lady. Don't tell somebody, definitely don't look at this door. Don't do it.
Yeah.
That's true, because I would never look into somebody's keyhole
Right.
ever.
Like, if
but
she
if someone
wouldn't have
starts
said
saying
anything about
don't
that door,
you dare.
If she would have said anything about the door, nobody would bother looking. When's the last time
Right.
you got curious about any door in a hotel aside from your own?
No, yeah. It's a locked, unmarked door. Who gives a shit?
you don't go into other people's doors.
All right, this happened not too long ago, but you know what? This creeped me out when I heard about it because this is so recent that I actually remember this news story. And I'm going to tell this because there's actually video to accompany it, so you can actually see the weird video on the side.
Oh.
So, titled "Deeply Disturbing Hotel Guest Final Sighting." You guys might remember this. A recent and pretty frightening mystery. In February 2013, a 21-year-old student named Alyssa Lamb was found floating in a water supply tank on the roof of the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. She had previously been reported missing. Her body was discovered by a maintenance worker after guests had complained that the water tasted funny. A grim thought indeed. However, there were no signs of visible trauma on the body, and drug tests came back clear, ruling the death as accidental drowning. What makes this case so eerily disturbing is the surveillance tape police put online, possibly showing some of Lamb's final moments. Is her erratic behavior that of a schizophrenic? She did have a history of bipolar disorder. Maybe she's seeing someone outside the elevator. Then there's the fact that access to the roof was barricaded completely, protected by an alarm. The water tank lids are so heavy to access that workers had to cut them open to remove her body. So how then exactly did Lamb get in the tank and replace the lid behind her? You really have to see the video for yourself to understand why it spooked the world and left some nagging questions. Bear in mind, no drugs or alcohol were found in her system.
That's really creepy.
Really creepy.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch that video.
They called it an accidental drowning, despite the fact that there's no way she could have lifted up that tank lid and closed it behind her. Yeah, the video is just her last moments in the elevator, and it looks like she's panicking, like she's being followed by somebody. Very weird.
Kind of reminded me of one of the stories where we're talking about it, and I was thinking about scary stories from my background because I'm Navajo.
Oh yeah.
And I'm actually just looking up these stories. I'm actually giving myself a panic attack because I'm slightly superstitious to this kind of things because my grandmother constantly thought that skinwalkers were after her and just bad witches and stuff. And
Is that why you're obsessed with witches?
but no, in Navajo, they're called Yanaldoshe. Yanaldoshe? I don't think I'm pronouncing that right anymore. I can't speak Navajo very well. But there's a story I remember that really kind of scared me. And it scares me because I remember visiting the reservation with my cousins and stuff all the time and see my grandmother and it's just pitch black out there. Especially at night, it's pitch black. But the story goes, when I was this kid, this happened. My uncle and I were finishing up chopping and gathering firewood for my grandmother because it was getting dark. Driving back on the dirt road at 30 miles per hour, I had this awful sense of being watched. Before I could turn to look out my window, the passenger side, my uncle quickly stopped. Don't. I completely froze. My heart felt like it was beating on my chest, then completely stopped when I heard tap, tap, tap on my window. My uncle sped up and was praying loudly in my native language. I didn't know what he was going on, and I thought it was over until our truck suddenly dipped from the bed. My uncle then started saying, "Look at me, and don't turn away." Over and over. Then I heard it again. Tap, 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 from the window behind me. It was getting harder for me to breathe and I wanted to cry. A minute or two passed and the truck dipped again. My uncle looked around and sighed. It was quiet besides the truck and the road. He looked at me and said, "Well, we will ask your father to do a prayer in the morning, so the evil will forget our faces." I remember curling up into my seat and staring at the radio watching the time, listening to my uncle sing an old prayer till we got to my grandmother's house. To this day, my uncle has never talked about it.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's very creepy.
Yeah. What did he see? So he was telling the kid don't look
Don't
at it
look.
so that it doesn't see your face.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that's the kind of the superstitious about
Yeah.
it is that you don't want to you don't want to be recognized. And my grandmother was very careful about not throwing away things that were like a part of her, like hair, fingernails.
That's like
you could use the magic from just like pieces of your hair and bones.
that kind of reminds me of the like plot device of Sense8. Did you guys watch Sense8?
No, we
Yeah.
kind of got bored.
If you're a Sense8, then like you can like get into the mind of another Sense8 if you like see their face, you know. So like the whole thing was like hiding your face from another Sense8, or else they could like infiltrate your mind.
Yeah. Ooh, just looking up those stories got me all kind of like anxious and like freaked out. Ugh. Yeah.
All right.
It's pretty crazy. Pretty spooky.
Spoopy. Well, I mean, I could keep going. Ash, do you have any more, or?
I don't have any more right now. No.
Okay. All right. How
You know what's
about...
spooky in here is all these little fruit flies that keep flying around me.
Holy shit! Okay, this one's pretty good. It's a short one.
Okay.
This
Rick,
is
Rick, I don't want to scare you, but there's something behind you right now.
oh god, oh god, it's hideous. It's a monster. It's a gremlin. It's okay.
It's a little pug or
He lives
Boston
here.
Terrier.
Okay.
Boy.
He lives under my
It
bed.
sounds
Don't
like a
look him in the eye.
It sounds like a narrative from some kind of Goosebumps book, the ghost train of the fun fair inhabited by real dead people. That was, however, the precise case at the New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California. And they'd have gotten away with it, too, if it hadn't been for those meddling kids at Universal Studios. In December 1976, a camera crew turned up to film an episode of the TV show $6 Million Man. While preparing the funhouse, a worker moved the hanging man, and his arm fell off, revealing a human bone. Turned out the corpse was that of outlaw Elmer McCurdy, who robbed a train of $46 and 2 jugs of whiskey in 1911. Before Universal Studios discovered the body of McCurdy, the man had been hanging around the funhouse for 4 years. Fairgoers simply thought he was a prop.
You know, there's a lot of those where they're just like, they think they're props. Constantly, there's like real bodies, that like real cadavers that have been used.
Yeah,
The story of McCurdy, like it's even more wacky than that, because like before the body ended up as like the false body there, he was like it was essentially a mortician had done such a good job of preserving his body. And because the body belonged to nobody, because he's this criminal that no one would claim, he would like prop him up in the window as like an example of this is how great I am.
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of work I can do. And the thing is, like, it stayed there for a very long time, and he would charge people, you know, like they could pay a penny, like, and put it in his mouth or something like that to like go up and like see it or whatever. You know, it's back in the early 1900s. It's the kind of like, you know, that kind of thing was not as shocking or morbid like of a thing that like me might think of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a weird way of preserving dead bodies here in the United States and just in Western culture in general. Fun fact, preserving bodies wasn't common until 1865 when Lincoln was assassinated. They wanted to preserve his body to take it on tour so that people could see the dead body of Lincoln. Before then, it was pretty
Just
uncommon.
put him in a,
Just put him in the ground.
So the thing about McCurdy was like, so he was in the window for a long time at this mortician's place, whatever. And then some con man came and said, you know, hey, I'm the brother of this guy and you have to give me his body because it doesn't matter if he's a criminal, it belongs to me. Of course, wasn't actually his brother. This was like a traveling circus guy. So he would take the body around. He would, you know, have people pay to come and see it. And then eventually when people, you know, at some point it ended up at the Universal
They just
lot,
thought it was
and
a
people
prop.
thought it was a fake body. So they used it as a fake body, fake prop for, like you said, years until it finally fell apart and they realized, holy crap, this is a real body.
You know what, though? Elmer McCurdy, he couldn't have imagined this kind of life after death. This guy,
No, man.
you know, for being some like petty thief who robbed a train of $46, this guy had quite the
And
life.
2 bottles of whiskey.
Yeah.
And 2 bottles of
Can't
whiskey.
forget those 2 bottles of whiskey.
He went out on a high note.
That's right.
Well, you know, there's like lots of stories of like Universal and like Hollywood using real bodies as prop. One of the biggest ones, and you could actually watch it if you like it. You could go and watch Poltergeist,
Oh, yeah.
the original Poltergeist. The scene where the house is like flooded and there's like bodies floating around. Those, my friends, were real cadavers. And that whole entire shooting from Poltergeist 1 to 3 was filled with so much really weird crap that kept happening.
Poltergeist was
even the little
cursed.
girl, she died.
Oh, yeah.
The little girl died, I think, during like some type of production.
Shortly after the third movie was made.
But it was like constant, like just weird, like creepy, ghostly stuff would happen throughout the entire production. There was lots of just bad luck, just tons of tragic events.
It's certainly spooky, but I'm skeptical about that.
You can't be skeptical on Spoopy episode, Price.
I'm sorry.
Put your skeptic's cap underneath the bed with that dead body and the little boy who's not really a little boy.
I'm sorry. Put it away. Put it away.
But yeah, it's pretty scary.
There's some creepy shit out there.
Yeah.
Speaking of creepy, tell us a creepy story.
I'll tell you a creepy story. All right. How about this one? Again, from creepypasta.org, called The Train Ride. All right.
Spoopy train ride.
Spoopy train ride. It had been a long, tiring day at work. It was quiet as I waited alone for the train. It was a bit after midnight and so dark that I could only see the square foot around me that the small light illuminated. Fortunately, I wasn't stuck waiting long for the train. Eagerly, I ran in the second the doors opened. There were only 2 other men in the compartment, not unusual for this time of night. The place reeked of smoke from the older man huffing on a cigarette. He took another long drag off of it and watched me as I came in and took my seat. I sat and looked up at the other man, sitting across from the smoker. He was only about 5 seats away, but his face was hidden by a hood, so I had trouble making out his features. His eyes, though. I could see those clearly. One was normal, but the other was red where it should be white. He stared shamelessly back at me with a tight, almost pained expression. I smiled at him, trying to break the tension, but he just stared. I looked out the window, trying to ignore his gaze, but I could still feel his eyes on me. The train lights began to flicker and went out for a moment. "Sorry, folks," said a voice over the static of the PA. "We're going to get maintenance on that in the morning. We apologize for any inconvenience." My stomach dropped, and I struggled to control my breathing. I reminded myself that there was no reason to be afraid of the dark, that I was a grown man, a tax-paying adult who... Oh, God, thank God. Oh, the lights are back on. I hadn't even realized my eyes were squeezed shut. Sighing, I opened them to see the man's unsettling eyes staring back into mine, from only 2 seats away. Bewildered, I looked over at the older man, who hadn't moved from his seat, took another drag from his cigarette and coughed, acting like nothing had happened. The train rumbled down the tracks. I was afraid to look back at the red-eyed man. I didn't want to. I didn't want to move or even breathe. I tried to convince myself that the whole thing was in my mind. Maybe I was just tired from a long day of work. Maybe I was just paranoid. And he wasn't even looking at me. The lights flickered again and went out. I held my breath, waiting for the lights to come back. After a moment, they did. And he was in the seat next to me, his face only a few inches away from mine. I leaned back. "What the hell, man? What do you think you're doing?"
Good.
He didn't respond. Instead, the smoker angrily said, "Look, kid, if you wanted me to put out the cigarette, you just had to ask, okay? Not you, this asshole over here." The smoker stared at me for a second, confused. "It's just me and yous here, kid. You all right?" The red-eyed man hadn't moved or responded at all. The lights went out again.
Ooh.
I think that guy was just crazy.
He might be. Long day. Long day.
Yeah, exactly.
Now who's the
Stress is
skeptic?
getting to you,
All right.
I think it was that
The
smoker.
stress gives you the old red eye.
I think that smoker saw him, and I think that they were in it together. They were like, let's fuck with
they
the
got
new
a little
guy.
bit of a
Let's fuck with the new
little bit of
guy.
a thing going on.
Just mess with his head.
All right.
Cool.
You got one, Ash?
I've got one from the Reddit thread.
Cool.
All right. Let's see. Let me see if I can see who this one was posted from. There's no way I can find out. Okay, fine.
Posted from Anon.
I was visiting my family for winter break in Los Angeles. This was about 5 years ago. I was heading to the bathroom on the second floor of my aunt's house when I saw my cousin, April. She was on the stairs. April was 4 and very animated. She was busy making faces while sitting on the stairs. I asked her what she was doing. She said, "I'm copying the lady with the braid." I looked around. There was no one else. I asked, "Where's the lady, April?" She pointed to the beam running parallel between the stairway. I asked April, "What's the lady doing?" "Making funny faces," she said. I smiled and started walking back to the stairs again when April said something that stopped me in my tracks. "April, her braids are around her neck. I turned back and asked April to repeat herself. April pointed. The lady's hanging by her braid. She's making funny faces. Then April started to make a face, and I realized that she was gasping for air.
Oh.
However, these are supposedly true stories from her.
That's really not okay.
That's creepy.
As soon as you said her braids are around her neck, I was like, no.
Yeah, I was like,
that's a rope.
Yep. That is not a style choice.
Oh, man.
I don't think we
hair
talked
just
about
happens to be
this
the same color.
last year, and I feel like we need to talk about it, and people have probably heard about this, but this is for those people who haven't. And this takes place in Portland, so it's near and dear to our heart. It's the story of Polybius. Have you guys heard about Polybius?
Nope.
Oh, really? So, I'll just read it.
Yep.
I think most devout gamers will probably admit that they have been addicted to a certain title in their lives, whether it's Call of Duty, FIFA, Grand Theft Auto, or even Pokemon. Video gaming by nature has an addictive quality. Few gamers will be able to relate to the addiction of a little-known arcade machine known as Polybius, which appeared in arcades in the Portland, Oregon area. These machines were said to be monitored by mysterious men in black. Yes, like Will Smith. This machine was said to be extremely popular due to its addictive qualities and had gamers queuing around the block to play to the extent that people would fight over their place in line. This isn't the only problem the game caused. Reported side effects include amnesia, insomnia, nightmares, or night terrors, and some player never playing video games ever again. One player even became an anti-gaming activist. The name of the company that produced the legendary title is Sinneslotion, which is the German term for deletion of senses. This is rumored to be a secret U.S. government organization or an alias for Atari. The game has also been said to contain subliminal messages that influence players' behavior. The game said to be similar to Tempest, which also caused adverse side effects to those playing it, such as a photosensitive epilepsy, motion sickness, and vertigo. Yet some believe a lot of people are getting Tempest and Polybius mixed up, making the legend seem more authentic. In fun Easter egg terms, the machines popped up in The Simpsons, including the property of U.S. government written on the arcade case, and briefly in the Disney film Wreck-It Ralph. The game is now available as a downloadable ROM, and bogus machines have appeared in retro-style arcades as a practical joke. One of the most bizarre rumors about the game is that one of the only playable versions of the game is hidden in one of the first Donkey Kong arcade machines. This is also part of the creepypasta story, which reveals a certain Shigeru Miyamoto as the game's creator. Surely the brains behind Mario and Zelda wouldn't include something so sinister in a video game, would they?
He's got to channel the anger somewhere.
Yeah. Miyamoto,
He's
like,
a very happy man.
That's how you get all the happiness out, is you have the one dark place.
Rumor has it that there's still a cabinet floating around Portland somewhere.
Oh, boy.
Weird. What was it called? Polybius?
Polybius.
Well, we're going to have to play that.
Polybius.
Going to have to play that on the channel.
Yeah, right?
All right. I've got one here.
I think it should be the last one.
This will be the last
one,
so it's got to be the spookiest.
Oh, boy.
Yep. Putting you on the spot.
Think. I mean, I've got two of them that are both kind of spoopy. We'll go with this one. This one should be good. Okay. This one's called Who's That?
Who is that?
Who that ninja?
My basement has never been exactly a welcoming place. It's unfurnished. There's no carpet, and the walls consist of boring, exposed bricks. There's a set of old wooden stairs on one end that creaks whenever anyone uses them. Behind the stairs is a storage area that begins about 4 or 5 feet off the ground and goes maybe 15 feet further back underneath the garage. The place is a dump, as my brother never cleans it, and toys and tools and random things are sprawled out across the entire basement floor. And that's an accomplishment considering how huge it is. It's not very wide, but from one end to the other, it's at least 80 feet in length, including the storage space. However, it's not easy to see from one end to the other since the water heater, furnace, and other appliances sit conveniently at the bottom of the stairs to make it impossible to carry large objects like the Christmas tree up and down the stairs. Anyways, one night we had some friends over, and by we, I mean me and my parents. They had a little girl with them, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and since my brother was elsewhere, as usual, I wound up sort of babysitting this girl while the parents chatted over desserts or something. Since the basement had so many toys, I thought it was a good idea to take her downstairs to play. Upstairs was kind of boring for a kid her age, and the first thing she did when we got down there was find a large box. We had just replaced our washing machine, so its ginormous box was just sitting in the middle of the basement floor. It was as if I'd completely vanished as soon as she crawled into that box. She'd enter her own little world, playing house or something. I tuned out for a while to check my emails on my iPod while she entertained herself. And then she caught my attention.
Bless you.
"Who's that?" she asked. I blinked. "Who's who?" I responded, confused. "The man over there. The man in black," she responded, completely
Johnny
straight-faced.
Cash?
"There's no one there," I told her. "That's because he went upstairs," she told me. At this point, I took the girl upstairs and sat with my parents for the rest of the evening, not saying a word about what she had said. 2 years later, I had some friends over in mid-February. In Wisconsin, this means that if you're to go outside at night, you'd be frozen solid in under 10 minutes. So me and my friends were stuck inside and went downstairs to investigate the haunted basement I told them about. The above story, and in fact, there were 5 of us, including me and my cousin. I had a tape recorder to collect audio, my cousin had a digital camera, and the others were armed with flashlights because they wanted to turn off the lights. Reluctantly. So we pulled the strings to turn off the lights and we sat there in the pitch-black basement, but only for a few seconds. A halogen light bulb began to flicker above my head almost immediately. I reached up to find that it was halfway plugged in, but still, just a coincidence. I haven't even turned on my recorder yet. So I unplug the light, turn on my recorder, and tell my cousin to do the same to his camera. It was past 11 o'clock at night, so it was silent. Absolutely silent. Several minutes passed. We even did that thing they do on TV where you just ask questions to whoever or whatever. There wasn't a single response. So it turned into a bit of a joke. We started making fun of the situation. It felt pretty stupid. We laughed for a while. Finally, my cousin's camera gave a low battery warning, so we decided to take the last few minutes seriously. "Okay, I'm going to count down from 3, and then let's have it quiet again," my cousin says. 3, 2, 1. A few silent moments pass. My cousin's camera beeps and shuts off. I turn off my recorder, and we go upstairs to listen to the footage, and that was that. Of course, the footage was rather uneventful. We listened to the entire tape, and for the longest time, we heard nothing but the sounds of our own voices. Until the end. "Okay, I'm going to count down from 3, and let's have it quiet again," my cousin says. 3, 2, 1. A few silent moments pass. My cousin's camera beeps and shuts off. But then, in the half second between the camera turning off and the end of the footage, is a whisper. "Don't leave." We all stared at each other, petrified. "Who's that?" one of my friends asked. "The man in black," I told him.
What?
Spoopy voices, spoopy ghosts.
I think the man in black just wanted
We
a
tried
friend,
to
though.
watch.
He was like,
Just wanted a
we
friend is
tried
what
to
it sounds
watch
like.
some spoopy stuff when we were at that chalet.
oh, yeah.
The chalet.
They can
try to
never
watch-
get it right. They can never get it right. They were so close to making a scary alien movie, and they freaking messed it up at the end. Could have been so good, guys. It could have been so good.
Extraterrestrial. We don't suggest it.
What? Oh, was that what it was called?
I think it was called Extraterrestrial.
Yeah, something like that. I do not suggest it. To this day,
That was called Abducted.
the scariest alien abduction movie is still The Communion.
I still haven't seen it. Still haven't seen
The
it.
Communion. Christopher Walken, abducted by aliens. Keeps going back.
Rick is totally scared of
They
aliens.
make little.
everybody.
They make little
it's-
Christopher Walken hybrid alien babies.
Okay, that's
It's creepy.
It'd be awesome, but
I mean, that alone is creepy. It doesn't even have to be aliens. It's just Christopher Walken babies.
That's right. Christopher Walken alien babies. All right, guys.
hey, I'm a baby. I can't do it.
Can I do one more? Can I do one more?
One more.
One more. Because we're not even at an hour yet. Come on, man.
Pushing it. We're pushing it,
live a little.
buddy.
All right. So this last one that I'm going to do is called The Smiling Man. Also
I've
from
heard of this
creepypasta.org. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the U.S. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all that changed in just a few minutes in one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways away from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. The far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man, dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me by. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky, wearing an old suit. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street, and as I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing, and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I'd put about a half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the brief of moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time staring at him, and then he started moving towards me again. He took giant, exaggerated tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point I ran away, or pulled out my pepper spray, or my cell phone, or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me. Still smiling his smile, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance-walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time, he was running. I ran as well. I ran until I was off the side road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that is a very, very scary thing to see. The end.
There's an actual... Bless you. There is an actual short. Someone actually did a live-action movie
version of that?
Oh,
really?
Yeah. It's a short version of it.
Yeah, that's one of the more popular creepypastas.
Every time you say dance walking, though, I'm picturing like somebody breakdancing, like dance walking.
It's no mystery who this guy was. If anyone knows how to dance walk, that means he's either a member of the Jets or the Sharks, man. That's who it is.
Or it's Christopher Walken, dude.
He's like...
Can you imagine Christopher Walken staring at the sky with his mouth wide open?
Christopher Walken
going, wow.
would play the perfect role if he were cast in that role.
Whoa.
Forget about it.
It would be like in that Fat Boy Slim music video.
Exactly.
And he just starts flying.
Yeah. You know, he's like a classically trained dancer. Like,
yeah,
he's good at that.
He's crazy.
All right, guys, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. This has been our Spooptacular Halloween episode. I hope that you got some thrills, some chills, some spills, maybe, and we hope that you will leave some comments. Give us a like, give us a favorite. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, guys. And be sure to catch us next time when we'll be back with another not so spoopy Stumpcast. We'll see you guys then.
Bye.